Yes, sadly, unfortunately, if you've watched my channel for a long time, you remember Amy. Amy was a lot of fun and she was funny, and sadly I got word that she has passed away. And I was always an Elvis fan before I met Amy, but Amy kind of taught me all the cool stuff that you never hear about Elvis, who he really was. And she had read all the books. She appreciated him for his music and for the real man and the stories that his friends and Ginger and Linda and everybody had told. So I thought it was just appropriate with her passing to today do a video in her honor and do it on the night Elvis passed, because even though I knew in her heart she believed that Elvis died, she always wanted to believe that if anybody could pull off faking his death, it would be the great Elvis. And you know, I today am sad to make this video, and I hope that Elvis didn't fake, so that he's able to grab her hand and walk her across the gates. Rest in peace, Amy. I hope you're with Jim Morrison and Elvis and everyone else. Well, Billy, thank you for meeting up with me today, especially for this video, because I actually know who you are because of Amy. And so this little tribute video about Elvis's last day I thought would be kind of a fitting way to say goodbye.
Absolutely, yes sir.
Now that day, Ginger mentions that her niece was there visiting and kind of hanging around Lisa Marie at the mansion, and that they had been riding golf carts around with Elvis that day. And then she says that Elvis said that he thought he had chipped a tooth or something like that. And so they took a ride, and it was Charlie, Joe, Billy Smith, Elvis, and Ginger, so they say. What do you like? Who was there that night?
Man,
you know,
I can't get a firm.
I know Ginger in her book says that Charlie drove them here. I know that.
Well, I feel like it was Elvis, Ginger, Billy, and Charlie is who I think it was.
Okay.
I don't think Joe was in the car, but I can't say yes or no.
Now, where we are is what it looks like to us. It looks like a building that has been vacated and is on the verge of being demolished. But where are we?
Well, this building up until maybe 6 months ago was not vacated. This was a working medical facility, and this is the building that Elvis came to the very last night or morning of his life, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah, because Elvis worked on Elvis hours, which were basically waking up at 4 in the afternoon or something like that-ish.
So he had an appointment here at 10:30 p.m. on August the 15th, that night.
It was Dr. Hoffman?
Dr. Hoffman with one F. That's right. So it's an odd spelling, but he's a Jewish man. And so it's one F, and he's actually buried over in the Baron Hirsch Cemetery, and Marty Lacker's buried right beside him, or right at his feet. They're buried real close together. But his office was in this building, and his office, the entrance would have been down here on this back side.
If anybody wants to come and visit it before it's gone. I mean, we're just speculating.
We hope it's not going to be gone.
Yeah, we're hoping that it's not, but we're speculating it could potentially, because it's just everything's so overgrown and everything. But it's
sell sign. There's nothing to indicate that anybody is, trying to sell it.
Yeah. Now Billy is showing us, if you go around the back, you can actually see where probably Elvis would have probably parked the car over here, I would guess.
I feel like he would have parked right there, but this would have been the front door. Watch this. Don't fall in there.
Okay.
This is the front door to the office.
So they would have, probably pulled up over here where the handicap spots are, because you got to remember this would have been after business hours. So,
but even though this is the front door, that is the door that I believe he went into, because that is the room that the dental chair would have been in. That's like the largest room in the office.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one of the funny things that I thought about this is Ginger says in her book that when they got here, that Dr. Hoffman came out, and she said Elvis looked at him and said, meaning to Ginger, "She's ugly, ain't she?" And Dr. Hoffman said, "Yep." Yeah. And so she said they went inside, checked him over. Now, I know there are people that I see it all the time. They go, well, you know that this was just so he could get, you know, an extra batch of drugs. No, he didn't need that. He didn't need to come to a dentist for that. He thought he had a chipped tooth, but when they came out, he asked the dentist about getting ginger braces or retainer or something like that.
Braces, yeah, getting her teeth straightened. Mm-hmm.
Which kind of leads into what you have said. He wouldn't have probably done something like that if he wasn't serious.
Yeah, I mean,
about
look,
her.
if you're not thinking about the future, that proves, just that one thing proves that Elvis was thinking of the future. And what I mean by that is he was thinking it takes a period of time to get your teeth straightened. And so he was not thinking of something that Dr. Hoffman could do tonight.
Yeah.
He was thinking of something Dr. Hoffman was going to do in the future.
Right.
So Elvis, that night, August the 15th, or the morning of August the 16th, the day he passed away, he was in this building right here with Dr. Hoffman, Dr. Hoffman's wife as well, which was like a dental assistant to him, and Ginger.
And over in that room,
he was looking at her teeth to see about straightening them for the future. That's not a guy that's planning on getting rid of someone. He wouldn't be doing things like that. And so, can I go into that little thing that I've talked about?
Well, why don't we talk about that when we get out to Graceland?
Okay.
Because that kind of dovetails into what she says they talked about when they left here. But one of the things that she does mention that we haven't talked about is that I guess Elvis had, you know, kind of toyed with the notion of seeing a movie this night, and they had tried to get a hold of somebody to do it. And so while they were here, Ginger said she remembered Charlie calling back to Graceland to see if they were going to be able to go view MacArthur. Mm-hmm. And they said that there was no projectionist available. Mm-hmm. So if that hadn't happened, I mean, who knows, you know?
And what's odd now is MacArthur was actually playing at the theater. If you went this way on Poplar goes that way, I-240 is right there. It was playing at a theater just on the other side of I-240 right off of Poplar.
That's crazy.
That night, but now it wasn't playing at 12:30 at night.
Yeah.
There's the key. So basically that's where they tried to call to go to, but a projectionist wasn't available after the last showing is more or less what was going on. So
outside of Graceland, this was the last place that he would have visited. Mm-hmm. And you're going to take us over to Graceland and kind of show us how, you know, because the streets and everything in Memphis have changed, you're going to show us how would have been the likely route that they would have probably taken to get there. What I believe is the route. Now, in my video that I did about that, I took the standard route, but I've spent a lot of time in Memphis since then. Yeah. So I'm going to take the route, what I believe he would have done, because, you know, when you live somewhere and you travel a lot, you start taking and you told me why you think he took certain routes. Like you thought he took a different route to get here than what he would have taken to go home. Exactly. And that's how we actually came here. Yeah. You know, so when we go back, we'll just go right down here and jump on 240 and go straight back. But I don't think he would have gone down and gotten on 55 and then back off on 51. I think he would have turned off on another road. And that's what we'll do today. It's just such a sobering thought to think of. You never know when that last moment or your last day is coming. And, you know, he probably was in there, as he always was, joking with these guys because they all became friends. Everybody, all the doctors, he got along great with everybody. Probably in there joking, laughing it up and everything. And had no idea that he'd be gone less than 24 hours from now. When he left here, he got to Graceland about 12:30 is the story. Yeah. And it would take about 15 minutes to get there from here, thereabouts. So he left here after midnight. Okay. Yeah. So to give you an idea where we're at, that's the I Bank down there. So this is Poplar. This is what they call East Memphis, which is a very wealthy, well-to-do part of Memphis even today. And so he would have come over here and spent a lot of time. Behind that building over there is where he learned to play racquetball at the Memphis Racket Club. It's gone now. Oh, but wow. Behind that was where the Racket Club was, where he started with Dean learning to play racquetball, and eventually he built the racquetball court. But that's right over there. And that McDonald's that's right there on the left, Dean told me stories of them leaving the racquetball court, heading back to Memphis and stop at the McDonald's and get food. And so Elvis ate at that McDonald's right down there. And ironically, you know, you mentioned the racquetball. Ginger says that the last night that he was alive, that was actually the first time she said she ever saw the racquetball court. Really? I did not realize that. She said that in her book, that up to that point she had never been there, and Elvis called and woke up Billy and Joe at like 4 a.m. and wanted to go down and do like a a mixed game, and Ginger said that she had told Elvis earlier that she had started her period, so she wasn't in any condition to play. So she said Elvis and Billy kind of cut up, acting like Elvis was hurting his leg by hitting it with a racket. And then, of course, he went over to the piano and played the last 2 songs that he played.
Yeah. And now, something that's interesting about reading a book is that's why I read them several times, because I miss details.
Yeah.
You focus on one detail and miss the next one.
Sure do.
So say I didn't catch that detail when I read it, and I reread it recently, and so that's why it helps to go through them and then go through them and go through them. And right down here on the left is where right now Red West, Dr. Nick, Sam Phillips, Charlie Rich,
right
George Klein, all those folks are right here on the left,
buried there
in Memorial Park, and they're buried in an affluent part of town. And the house that Dr. Nick was building at the time when Elvis passed away, if you go straight across 240 and stay on Poplar, is further down on this road. So he built in a really affluent area. So I believe that Elvis would have come down Poplar like we're doing right now and turned right here on 240 and got right back on the main highway, which is what we're going to do.
And they were driving the Stutz that night.
The Stutz.
Which I think that's the one that's on display in Graceland, or at least
it is.
It was
Both
last
of them are
time.
back.
Yeah.
Both of them are there now. Yeah, one of them got tied up in that stuff in Las Vegas at the Westgate, but it's back now. Right here is where I believe Elvis would have veered off of 240 to go to Graceland. If you don't turn here, you have to go all the way down to 55 and make the traffic circle and get back on 55 and then turn off back on the Elvis Presley Boulevard.
So you think it's Mill Branch?
And I believe if he would have turned off on Mill Branch, you'll see how close it is to Brooks Road. So basically, we jump off on Mill Branch, and then it's less than a mile to Brooks Road, and then Brooks, you go right, and it's less than a mile to Elvis Presley Boulevard. So this, after having spent a lot of time here, with the dojo, and traveling all around, this is how I would go to the dojo, because it makes more sense to do this and go all the way down there to the traffic circle.
And again, for a guy who loved his cars and motorcycles and everything, this was his last ride. You know, it's crazy to think of. He had no idea that was his last ride.
And he knows every inch of Memphis. He drove here when there was no I-240.
Yeah.
We were just on. When he bought Graceland, that wasn't there. In fact, when he bought Graceland, I-40 was not even there.
So we just took a right on Brooks.
Yeah. And then we're going to go down and take a left on Elvis Presley Boulevard, which got changed to Elvis Presley Boulevard in 1971. It was Bellevue Road or Highway 51.
But yeah, when he came home that day, it would have been Elvis Presley Boulevard. You're absolutely right.
That's right.
I love those stories about where Ginger tells him he'd go out on his motorcycle and he'd race people and say, "Get off my street."
Dick Grove told me that when Elvis would take his motorcycle or a car, he would call the highway patrol for Elvis and tell the highway patrol that Elvis is going to be coming. And they would kind of try to clear the road and let Elvis just go out there and drive as fast as he wanted to.
That's funny. So here is the left at Elvis Presley Boulevard.
Yep. And the dojo, if you go straight, is 2 blocks.
Yeah.
And then you turn left on Elvis Presley to go to Graceland. Turn right to go downtown Memphis. That goes all the way downtown.
This is the road that takes you to Graceland.
So we know that Elvis went through the front gate because there's a photo. A man took the very last photo of Elvis the morning of August 16th, 1977 at around 12:30.
Yep.
And he would have come down here where we're at and made a left turn. And we'll simulate the left turn to the gate.
There's Graceland up there. Here's the famous wall and the gates that they would have driven in that last time. And when Amy got to come here, the one and only time she came to Graceland, she got her photo right there. You're happy? A little tribute to her there. There are the famous gates. Sad to think of. There goes a tour van in, just like he would have made his last drive in. So we know they drove back here for that one last time, and Ginger said when they got back that Elvis met up with the guys and that she went into Lisa Marie's room with her niece, and then Elvis joined them, and she said they were watching TV for a little bit, and then he turned off the TV while smoking a cigarillo, and he looked dead into her eyes and he said, I've been thinking a lot about when we're gonna get married. And Billy, you just made a video on kind of this conversation.
Yeah.
He kind of mentions to her, you know, how about your birthday or my birthday or Christmas? And they kind of agree on Christmas, and he tells her, you know, I want you in glass looking slippers and everything. But then he describes, or he has like kind of an idea for a church. Do you want to talk about your video?
Yes, absolutely. He tells her that that he had a fascination with pyramids, and because he believed that it had some sort of a mystic power, that sort of thing. And he mentioned to her that Charlie Hodge had mentioned to him about a church on the river in Memphis that had a roof shaped somewhat like a pyramid. So when I read that in the book, as I mentioned before, you know, we hear different details.
Yeah.
When I read that, I kind of went, okay, so a church with a pyramid roof shouldn't be hard to find on the river. So I started researching. It took me a little while because here in Memphis, we have the pyramid downtown. So when you put the word pyramid, that's basically all you get.
Yeah.
You know? And so when we put that in, I started searching, and I finally found a church that was on the river. It's the only church, by the way, on the Mississippi River in Memphis. And it's got a roof that is somewhat shaped like a pyramid. And so I take you into that church and show you what it looks like. And when you're in it, it's got these giant glass windows. The wall facing the river is just glass. The whole
and
thing.
not a big place at all.
No, not. But it's beautiful. And it was actually built by the same guy, designed and built by the same guy that designed and built the Memphis airport. And you mentioned cigarillos. Elvis would go, Bill Morris told me that him and Elvis would go to the airport to buy cigarillos at the airport.
Oh, interesting.
Because they were imported. That's where he would get them from.
Now, Ginger said that when they talked about it, he was saying he wanted a blue limo, and she was showing with his hands that he wanted it longer than a normal limo, and that he thought that the maids of honor should wear pink, and she said lavender, and he said he wanted it to be the wedding of the century.
Yeah.
So
and
then,
it would have been.
Yeah, so she said then they, Elvis had mentioned that he was kind of planning on wanting to play some racquetball, and so they eventually, she said, he went and met with the guys again, and she thought it was about the upcoming tour because they were getting ready to start the tour. And then she said he came back in and said he wanted her to pick out a dress because he wanted to do an official announcement at the concert announcing their engagement and putting it in the paper. Yeah.
Right.
And then they went out and to the racquetball court like we talked about. She said it was the first time. And then they came back in and went upstairs. Billy helped dry his hair, so he says. And now we were talking. You said you didn't remember like some of the details from Ginger's book, and I hadn't actually remembered that fact that she was on her period. But that explains a lot because she says that Nurse Tish came up and brought her Tylenol and codeine, which made her really drowsy. And she said so. Elvis and her started reading a book, and they got tired. She fell asleep and woke up, and he was tossing. And she said she heard him call. He had got his packet that he normally had before he went to bed. And she said when she woke up, it was like 8 o'clock. And he called for another packet. So she actually said she thought that they gave him placebos. Did you know?
As a general rule, they would.
Yeah. And that's something people have to know is that, you know, he wasn't always given what he wanted. They sometimes just gave him the placebo. So then she said he called for another packet at 8. And she said then she fell asleep and at 9 o'clock woke up and looked at the clock and he was up again. And she said that he said, I'm going to go in and read. And he went into the bathroom, and she said she woke up and he wasn't there. and she called her mom and said, you know, Elvis wants me to come out on tour right away, but I was trying to, you know, hold off for a couple of days because I'm on my, you know, I'm having cramps right now. But she said she decided then that she was going to go on the tour, and so she went in, and that's where she found him. So
and the ambulance call was at 2:33 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah, so she said she found him about 2:15 and called down, and Al Strada came up, and man, and as we know, you know, the king was gone.
Yeah, and the last photo was taken as he was going through those gates right there.
Now, Billy, you wouldn't happen to know by any stretch of the imagination what happened to that ambulance, would you?
I actually would. So the ambulance, that's a good point. The ambulance came here to pick Elvis up that afternoon. They arrived at, let's see, it was called at 2:33.
So it took about 20, 30 minutes?
No, it took them 8 minutes.
Oh, 8 minutes, okay.
Yeah, and so they arrived here at 2:40. It took them 8 minutes to load him, and it took them 8 minutes to get him back downtown. So they moseyed here. And then, because the call, if you listen to the call, you can hear it at the museum. It's the only place anybody has it. If you listen to the call, when Joe Esposito made the call, what he said was, we have someone that is not breathing.
Yeah.
He didn't say it was Elvis. When the dispatcher sent the call, he said someone having trouble breathing.
Yeah.
So that's the
instead of
reason-
saying he was unresponsive, and that
Exactly.
the reality was they couldn't pry his mouth open to even give him mouth to mouth or anything like that.
So they needed to hustle down here, but they listened to the call and didn't hustle. And I don't think it would have changed the outcome.
Right, because he was found hours probably after when he passed.
Yeah.
We're talking. Ginger said that he said he was going to go into the bathroom and read at 9 a.m. and she said she jokingly said, "Don't fall asleep in there," and then she found him at 2 p.m.
That's
so
right.
and she said that he was unfortunately like face down in his bathroom or pajamas and everything. So
yeah. Sad day. But
Yeah.
the ambulance that tried to save his life, if there was any life to save, we have it at the Tiger Man Dojo.
you rescued it. You found it in someone's
It
backyard,
was in a backyard, sat there for 27 years.
and now it's going to be there for everyone to see at the Tiger Man Dojo here in Memphis.
That's right.
So rest in
1
peace,
mile
King.
that way.
I love that Graceland is open and still does tours, and fans can still go see his home and everything. And like I mentioned, I was always an Elvis fan, but when I met Amy, she saw like all the coolest things about Elvis that I felt like had been omitted from his story unless she did a deep dive. And so it was a real pleasure to get to bring her out here so that she could see his house. And we're gonna wrap it up. I hope Elvis, I hope you walk across the pearly gates. Rest in peace, Amy.
Birthday to you. Cha cha cha. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jordan the Lion. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Oh, should I film you blow your candle out?
Here, hold on.
Why don't you let me do it? Aw. Did you make a wish, Jordan?
I did.
I was so lost, lost in my thoughts. Images of us starting to rust. We're broken in pieces. Thought we were fine. It's all for good reason.